I think that there are active compounds inside a hot water extraction that is doing some very beneficial things for people, but there's no research done to specifically point at what compounds are. Who knew that two double blind experiments were not going to be enough? Because all they do is show that fruiting bodies does something good for us, but does not tell us how it does it and what compound does it, so we can actually extract specifically that compound. Hi, my name is Dom. Welcome to Badwater. We're talking about two active compounds in lion's mane, Hericenones and Erinacines. Hericenones are found in the fruiting body of the lion's mane, and they are supposed to, they can stimulate nerve growth factor, which means that for people that have degenerative brain diseases, you could possibly treat people with Alzheimer's with hericenones and at least slow down the degradation of their brain cells. And then you have Erinacines, which comes from the mycelium of the lion's mane. For example, this is mycelium and on grain. This is not what you eat generally, but the Erinacines come from the mycelium. They're also known for stimulating nerve growth factor, and that's all good and well. The beta glucans, they're more universal to all mushrooms, and generally they're just good for digestion. It seems like they help with the body in several ways that I'm not entirely sure at the moment. When I perform an extraction on my lion's mane, I'm doing a hot water extraction to make the beta glucans and then hopefully some hericenones bioavailable to the body. Because if you ate it raw, most of it will be expelled without you having gotten the benefits. People recommend that you cook the lion's mane, and then you'll be getting some of those benefits as you cook any mushroom to break down some of the cell walls. But then there are other people that extract the mycelium or the full biomass, which means that you use this whole thing, you dry it up, and you turn it into powder in some form or another. You perform an extraction on it. Some people just turn this into powder and try to sell it to you. There's one study that supports being able to do that. This is the big controversy in the lion's mane scene because we have one of the main proponents of mushrooms in general, the most famous, Paul Stamets. He has his own capsule line of all different mushrooms, turkey tail, reishi, lion's mane. His idea for at least lion's mane is that you just dry this up and grind it down and put it into capsules. And this is controversial to people because some people don't think that most of the main benefits that you get from lion's mane comes from just dehydrating this biomass, as they call it. Other people say that, hey, you need to use the fruiting body itself and either do an alcohol or hot water extraction to activate the active compounds that makes lion's mane so unique. I am going to invite you into a web of bullshit that makes it all so confusing to know what is good in lion's mane and what's not. Because what you'll see is a bunch of different conclusions that all lead to different directions. If you took every single study, research article that supports a certain form, you're going to find support for every single form, and you're going to find support specifically one particular compound. The unfortunate thing is that it's not the compound you're hoping, and it's not the compound you usually see. Again, we have hericenones with the fruiting body, Erinacines with the mycelium. The Erinacines are hiding in here, and people do ethanol extractions in order to pull out those Erinacines or make them bioavailable. And people can do alcohol extractions on the fruiting body and then make those hericenones bioavailable. Let's get into the first page here. We have one of the classic studies that everyone likes to link to when they talk about lion's mane supplementation. Because first, we have a great title here: Acute and Chronic Effects of Lion's Mane Mushroom Supplementation on Cognitive Function, Stress, and Mood in Young Adults. It's double blind. It's a pilot study. Not many people have done it before. This is great. Everyone wants to hear a double-blind experiment trying to see whether something works for them, because you give a certain group the placebo, you give the other group the lion's mane. You don't tell either one what they got, and you just see what their subjective answers are to your surveys and tabulate which one is a better performer. And if you got the actual active compound that's the better performer, you have a strong correlation that that active compound does something for people in a beneficial way. This is the most beautiful title you can get with lion's mane, but there's an issue. The issue is that we go through the actual citations and the logic behind the study, particularly these two sections, which is we're going to go to that second part there, which is citing different research articles. Both Hericenones and Erinacines can easily cross the blood-brain barrier. Citation number 10. We're going to go into absolute bioavailability, tissue distribution, and excretion of Erinacine S. So we go into that. Now we're looking into that 10th citation that the original research article goes into. All it said was that this study was the first to show that Erinacine S could penetrate the blood-brain barrier of rats. There is no mention of Hericenones in this research article, yet this whole sentence throws a lot of heavy-duty work on the citation. Both Hericenones and Erinacines can easily cross the blood-brain barrier. Well, we found out that one Erinacine, Erinacine S, to be clear, is that Hericenones and Erinacines can be subdivided into like dozens of compounds, subcompounds. To just say it is that Erinacine A and Erinacine S are the two most commonly research compounds that have penetrated the blood-brain barrier in vivo. This means that you give a live rat this compound and it actually does something beneficial to them. Whereas Hericenones, in a 2008 study, they did not find any Hericinone to cross the blood-brain barrier, which means that it didn't actually help with nerve growth factor. The logic of this statement, Hericenones Erinacines, is not true. It's 50% right and 100% wrong. Only Erinacines can easily cross the blood-brain barrier. I'd love if they made that second citation that shows the Hericenones. It doesn't. We can check the one thing off, is that right now, we don't have evidence that Hericenones can actively stimulate NGF in humans or in live animals. But there are multiple examples of Hericenones stimulating NGF in vitro, which means outside of a living body. So you just made a little cell, some kind of like synthetically made, I don't know, you take it away from a rat and you play with that cell. And you've had success with that, but they haven't done it in vivo in a living rat or a human being or researched it directly. Next, we're going to go to that section part. In a sense, they're saying both Hericenones and Erinacines can promote nerve growth factor synthesis and secretion. Why they break this up into two parts is that first, we need to show that it can get into like the brain area in order to do its work. So that's what citation 10 was about. Once it gets into the brain, it needs to show that it actually can promote nerve growth factor synthesis. So we have first, citation 11. First, it says Erinacines A, B, and C, strong stimulators of NGF. Awesome. Still, no mention of Hericinone. This continues to push forward the idea that Mycelium and its active compound, Erinacines, are going to be the way to stimulate NGF. And this is important because a lot of people's talk about therapeutic uses of lion's mane is derived from the ability to stimulate NGF. And if you can't provide that with a fruiting body, then most of the industry is using fruiting bodies in order to create extracts and to sell some kind of lion's mane form. And a lot of times they point at this type of idea that it helps regrow nerves. Even I've been under the wrong impression the last couple of years that it was solely the fruiting body that does this, and that even Paul Stamets was wrong about his whole biomass or mycelium debate. But it's because you get pushed the articles that support your idea, because it's like the mycelium is kind of a hard thing to process. How people argue against Paul Stamets' biomass capsulization is that he dries it up, he grinds all of this, and then he sells it. And what is the percentage of mycelium to grain in here? I think he uses rice, so it's a lot more edible. But if there's a certain amount of mycelium, there's even a less amount of the active compound in here. That's why people perform extractions, because they don't have to use the physical. They're taking out all the active compounds into a liquid and removing all the physical stuff. If I ate this mycelium, how much Erinacines am I going to get, and how many capsules do I actually have to take in order to get a therapeutic amount from it. So that was always the issue of the biomass. So people jumped over fruiting body, which feels more pure when someone's not just like adding, looks like a rice mycelium mix. You got this pure fruiting body that is full of beneficial things like beta glucans. Again, hericenones, still not mentioned for actual nerve growth factor synthesis. So we're going to look at citation number 12. Okay, chemical constituents from Hericium erinaceus. I don't think I said it. Hericium erinaceus is the Latin name for lion's mane, and there's no coincidence that the active compounds of lion's mane is Hericenones and Erinacines. So I'll just call it HE, and their ability to stimulate NGF-mediated neurite outgrowth on PC12 cells. So I looked up what PC12 cells. These are cells derived from a rat's medulla. So my thought, if they're saying derived, I'm assuming that this is a in vitro process that they're doing. So it means that outside of a living body, they're just kind of like you are figuring out the theoretical ability for a compound to create growth or some kind of change in this cell. But the problem is that the cell is not attached to the body. A body. It still needs a bunch more research before you can actually say that it can do something for the body. If you just did something for a cell. Okay, I highlighted this. You don't need to read that. I'm highlighting this because they're naming the numbers. They're numbering each of these compounds, and they're listing off things, including, let's see, Hericinone as number 11. But at the bottom here, they're saying which actual compounds, the number of compound helped create or increase neurite bearing cells. And they're including 1 through 3, which are, none of them are Hericinone or Erinacine. And then they're talking about number 10, which is a crazy name. That's crazy. What we're seeing is that compounds taken from HE were able to help increase nerve growth factor. This is the closest thing I've found to what other active compounds besides Erinacines and Hericenones could have a benefit to human beings. We're not seeing Hericinone right now, but we are seeing all these other things. And that's where I need to think about that. I couldn't buy the actual article for this one, so this was just pure fruiting body. This is why they don't talk about Erinacines at all. We had 3 articles. All 3 articles don't support Hericenones as an actual active stimulator of nerve growth factor, which means that it makes it really hard for someone to argue for fruiting bodies as the way to be a therapeutic method for something like Alzheimer's. But what we can see at least is that we have several other active compounds that can stimulate NGF, but it was still in an in vitro situation rather than in vivo or in actual life. Next one, citation 13. The idea that lion's mane has been able to exert anti-neuroinflammatory and neuroprotective properties. I'll go right to 13. Redox modulation of cellular stress response and lipoxin A4 expression. Sorry, I shouldn't have read the title. I don't even know what it says mostly. By HE in rat brain. Relevance to Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis. The reason why researchers think that lion's mane is going to be good for Alzheimer's in some way is because of the neuroprotective properties, and that inflammation in the brain is what's causing brain cell death for people with Alzheimer's. So if you consume lion's mane, then you'll reduce the inflammation that occurs with a disease like Alzheimer's. What I thought was interesting in this one is that they work with biomass. There are several different ways that most research it has taken different forms of lion's mane. So you have biomass, which is mycelium plus substrate, and what they argue in comparison to H. erinaceus extracts, biomass has the advantage of preserving all nutraceutical potential, which is usually reduced with extracts or concentrates. So they're going the Paul Stamets way, is that you're keeping everything. If you just eat all of this, you're going to get all the benefits. So it contains mycelium and the primordia. Primordia, I would say the magic of a lion's mane jar is that it looks like it's barely colonized, but yet I look at the top of these grains and there is primordia there. If I let this grow long enough, it would want to it would want to fruit from these grains, even though it doesn't have that much nutrients. So I'm knowing that it's pretty ready to go in general, even though it doesn't look very ready. You can just see it's just like very spotty and stuff. There is some varieties of lion's mane that'll be full white, but for some reason, this one was not. So yeah, aseptically air dried, granulated, and then reduced to powder. No, absolutely no extraction at all. Neither hot water or alcohol. I guess if you have enough of a substrate, like I just feel as if you're gonna have to eat a bunch of this in order to actually get the therapeutic amount that you'd want, which I think is like 1 to 3 grams of extract. The results revealed that H. erinaceus prevented impairments of spatial short-term and visual recognition memory. On a very unfortunate level, I think they somehow are able to put compounds in mice to cause them to look like they have Alzheimer's and things like that. And then they treat them with a different compound like lion's mane or something more pharmaceutical to see whether it reduces those impairments. Well, it actually prevented the impairment, so that's good. But as I say here, is that this is good news that you can have non-extracted mycelial biomass that can have a positive effect. And this is, yeah, in vivo. Like this is actually about live mice and their behavior and when treated with lion's mane. So even if we're not seeing that hericenones are doing something beneficial, those active compounds that I listed earlier might be doing something that can help. The only thing is that most of this research oversimplifies lion's mane into Hericenones and Erinacines and forgets that there are other compounds that might have a potential factor in providing benefits to someone's mental impairment. Okay, number 14 from the original article. Erinacine A enriched H. erinaceus mycelium ameliorates Alzheimer's disease related pathologies in mice. We're going back to Erinacine support, which is then again that mycelium is going to be the key to therapeutic treatment or the source of it. So they have the mycelium without extraction, and then they have ethanol extracted mycelium in this experiment. What you would see in this article is that the ethanol extracted mycelium was a little more bioavailable, but not significantly so much that it double or triple or anything. It's just like maybe 10 to 20% more bioavailable to the rats and increases NGF maturation and hippocampal neurogenesis in APP PS1 mice. This is one of the main articles that can help support someone saying that there are neurogenetic properties in lion's mane, but then they try to sell you the fruiting body, which they could be right. And that's the hard part is that what I'm trying to figure out is since there's no research to support Hericenones doing this, and there's only support for mycelium, then what are we doing with fruiting bodies? But the thing is that I personally have been making fruiting body extracts for 2 years now, and I've only had benefits from lion's mane. I am more focused. I can do more things than I ever thought was possible. I can be more physically active than I've been before by taking it. Are we all just working with placebo effect? I don't know, but I don't think so. I think that there are active compounds inside a hot water extraction that is doing some very beneficial things for people, but there's no research done to specifically point at what compounds are. And that's what the drum I have to keep on beating on this thing. Mycelium treatment decreased burden and number of whole plaque by 40% and 35% respectively. And then the ethanol extracted one decreased it by 56% and 43%. So you're seeing that's a 10 to 20% increase in performance by the ethanol extracted mycelium. But this is also really good news that you don't need to extract the fruiting body, but if you don't extract it, you're going to need at least 20% more of the material. This is a terrible math to work with when you're working with all these numbers, but you're going to need more powdered, unextracted material with any lion's mane form than you're going to need with the extracted form. Number 15, anti-inflammatory effect of Erinacine C, still about neuroinflammatory and neuroprotective properties. Erinacine C, Now they're calling it EC. Erinacine, still found only in mycelium. We have shown that EC reduced the concentrations of LPS-induced pro-inflammatory factors, that the mechanism of action of EC involves inhibition of expressions of certain things, and then activates NRF2 signaling pathway. More studies are required to further elucidate the anti-inflammatory mechanisms of EC. So they know that it is anti-inflammatory. They just would want to do more research about how it is anti-inflammatory. But that's great. Now we know that Erinacine A, C, and S are some of the most active in their neuroprotective properties. This one is only about anti-inflammatory. I don't know about its effect on NGF or nerve growth factor. Next, promising cognition enhancing effects. Effects of H. erinaceus on amyloid B peptide inducing learning and memory deficits in mice. So cognition enhancing effects is more like impairment treatment effects, but let's get in there. These ones were fed a diet containing lion's mane over a 23-day experiment. I believe I was not able to figure out what form of lion's mane, but I think that it was just powdered fruity body or possibly powdered extract. Like when they don't talk about their extraction method, they usually just mean that it's either biomass or fruiting body. The results revealed that lion's mane prevented impairments of spatial short-term and visual recognition memory induced by amyloid B peptide. I'm guessing that's another compound that they inject into rats to confuse them and stuff, and then treat them with an active compound. This one is evidence of powdered fruiting body or biomass in relation to cognitive benefit. What I thought was very interesting was that one of the most referenced articles from Erinacine and Mycelium producers is this one by Koichiro Mori, nerve growth factor inducing activity of Hericum and Erinacines and human astrocytoma cells. And this is why I talked about in vitro versus in vivo. So they found that the efficacy of, they provided dry powdered lion's mane to mice and did see a increase of nerve growth factor in the hippocampus. But they concluded that the compounds that did do that were not hericenones. This is why everyone goes for erinacines. What I wish that this article would actually talk about is what were the active compounds. Lion's mane contains active compounds that stimulate nerve growth factor, and all they did was dry powder it. I don't think it was extracted. We can conclude that fruiting body does do something for nerve growth factor, but it's not hericenones. So this was a 2008 study. Same guy a month later made a study again, improving effects of the mushroom Yamabushitake, so lion's mane, on mild cognitive impairment. Another double-blind trial that is referenced a lot. And this is referenced a lot by fruiting body people because this guy, even though he said that the compounds in fruiting bodies that do all the benefits are not the hericenones, he does have a very good article about treating, I believe, 50 to 80-year-old Japanese people with lion's mane and seeing the cognitive benefits over a maybe 4 to 8 week period. There we go. At weeks 8, 12, and 16 of the trial, the lion's mane group showed a significantly increased scores on the cognitive function scale compared with the placebo group. It just kept on increasing with the duration of intake. And then the scores decreased significantly after what? After week 4, after the termination of the 16 weeks of intake. Oh, okay. So like this is over like a 20-week period. So week 4, man, and that's awesome. That's absolutely great to hear because we're seeing that fruiting body, dried fruiting body powder does something. And this is such a good article. And I'll share all of these titles have links to the study. So if you wanted to do your own homework on these, I'll figure out how to make this all interactable with people. What have we learned? Hericenones and Erinacines are compounds that can stimulate NGF. We've seen that in vitro, hericenones can stimulate NGF, but We saw that in vivo, only Erinacines could stimulate NGF in rats. I'm trying to remember if they've done it for humans. I don't think they've extracted to a single compound yet and then done the tests on humans. Every time they test on humans, it's just either biomass or lion's mane powder or dry lion's mane powder. But we have a conclusion by Mori that hericenones are not the active compound that do the magical things that we know with lion's mane. Hericenones are found in fruiting bodies. Hericenones are found in fruiting bodies and are not bioavailable. They cannot cross the blood-brain barrier as the first article talked about, as it tried to pretend it could do. Erinacines are found in mycelium and are bioavailable. And we saw that erinacine A, C, and S over different studies were extracted and were able to induce nerve growth factor or stimulate nerve growth factor. Even unextracted mycelium biomass may still encourage nerve growth factor, according to that one study. Stamets is right. Um, People complain about the the whole rice and filler aspect of it, but we're seeing that with a research article, it can encourage nerve growth factor. I think we just have to kind of shut up about it. Even the powdered fruiting body may have a positive effect for people with mild impairment from Mori. So not even extracted, just powdered. Powdered fruiting body had a positive effect for rats with mild impairment as well. Again, from Mori several years later. It's funny that the mycelium people use Mori's 2008 article so much to support their own product of mycelium slash biomass. But we are seeing that fruiting bodies do something. And again, this is my challenge out there. It's not that lion's mane doesn't do anything. Obviously not, because I wouldn't have been growing it for years now and using it myself if it didn't do anything. I'm too skeptical of a person to do that. Lion's mane in all forms has some kind of benefit for the brain. The problem right now is that there is not enough research, especially for Mori, that they kept on using powdered fruiting body. And it's like, this is doing well for people, but they're not isolating to the actual compounds after concluding that it wasn't hericenones. There's that one research article that has like 11 different compounds that they isolated from the fruiting body. It could be one of those, and I have to look those up as well. We've oversimplified what we're looking for inside for compounds in lion's mane. We keep on thinking first, only certificate of authenticity that things like Northspore uses for their lion's mane capsules is about their beta glucan content. That's good and fine, because you can destroy all your beta glucans by boiling it too much, or underboiling it. That just makes it as good as any other food supplement for just having a nice nutrient for yourself. That doesn't talk about the actual active compounds that are not even, I guess, water soluble. Hericenones and Erinacines are both alcohol soluble, but not hot water soluble. So it means that hot water extraction, like what I do for my lion's mane, doesn't provide the hericenones that someone might want because they think that stimulates NGF. But I do believe that there's something that in my hot water extraction I am activating to stimulate NGF, or at least create some kind of benefit for mental enhancing benefit. And that's another thing, is that we are so stuck on neurogenesis, NGF, that we forget that there's some other thing going on with lion's mane that actually helps with clarity and focus. And I don't think it's always about nerve growth. Yeah, growing nerves is great and all, but that's why I think is helpful for possibly memory if it hits memory centers. But nerve growth factor might not be the sole reason that people are focusing better with lion's mane and that people are considering it nature's Adderall. So what is it? I don't know, because after all this research, after hours of reading about this stuff, I've come to a conclusion that everything works and nothing works. Not really that nothing works. It seems like everything works in some way besides hericenones, and there's unknown things inside the fruiting body that's doing something for us. And unfortunately, if I came up to a different version of me who is more skeptical about this, then I wouldn't be able to tell them, hey, it's this thing in the fruiting body that does it for you. And so like how many people, how many customers are lion's mane producers missing because they can't actually make a hard claim about what is going on with it? It just kind of works. Is this how all herbal supplements are? That there's absolutely no science? I don't take most herbal supplements because I don't see enough science to actually support that it does certain things. What I did was I found some surface level research articles about lion's mane and saw that it does things for people, like Maury's articles. I adopted lion's mane and I started growing it, and I found the benefits just like the articles showed it would do. But yet, now that I come back to this research, I find out that I don't know what actually causes it. It's which is not cool, not awesome, not awesome for my brain. It's fine for a lot of people where they just say, hey, someone said that it's good for your brain, so I'll take it. But someone like me wants the hard compounds, wants the actual chemistry behind it all. Unfortunately, I'm not getting chemistry. I'm getting the practical studies, and that's awesome. And you can always link the practical studies, but you're never gonna have that easy story of what lion's mane does to the brain. Okay, grain of salt. This is the last slide. So several articles included in this presentation are just the abstract because I was too poor to pay for these articles. When I couldn't conclude what form of lion's mane someone was consuming, that's typically because I was stuck on the abstract. But 80% of these articles are for free download, which is awesome. More details about the form of lion's mane when administered. Yeah, that's what I just said. Okay. So if I bought those articles and I figured out what the form is, then maybe I need to do a statistical analysis of like, okay, this article said it had a positive benefit on the brain. What form of lion's mane was it? This? Okay, I'll check it off. I'll do that because that seems like it'll make it easier for someone who just like wants a consensus on how to take their lion's mane. Yeah, I'll do that. That's a really good idea. The last one is like, which is just ridiculous, is how most of these research articles, if you follow all their citations, about how they just point to each other. These research articles are eating its own tail, where it just references this one article over and over again, citing a whole bunch of things that article doesn't claim. And then another article cites this article that makes a conclusion because of that original article. So just like how we found that this one says both Hericenones and Erinacines can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, there's probably another research article that just read this one and just saw that, okay, they said this and then they cited it, so it must be true. And then they work with that. And that's why the Hericinone thing keeps on going without anyone stopping it, because no one is looking at their actual references and seeing that we're talking about Erinacines for the most part. Oh yeah, thank you for listening. I know I made a lot of confusing things, but I hope I made some things more understandable. And hopefully, as I become a better speaker, I can actually I can explain these things a little better. And just to resum it up to make me feel good, I want to know more about Hericenones and whether it actually does anything for the human body. I want to know what the other active compounds are in fruiting bodies that do such good things for us. And I want to know how mycelium, how I can extract mycelium, because we know that's the best thing we have. The most research we have is that Erinacines and mycelium have some of the most direct therapeutic benefits just by direct scientific research. What we don't have direct scientific research is on the lion's mane or the fruiting body. So we need more fruiting body research that is not just like, who knew that two double-blind experiments were not going to be enough, because all they do is show that fruiting bodies does something good for us, but does not tell us how it does it and what compound does it, so we can actually extract specifically that compound and make it more powerful than just eating the lion's mane. But for now, eat lion's mane, take the extracts, because you're gonna find some good benefits with it. And like, that's why I grow it, and that's why I sell it to people, because I'm pretty proud of like an herbal supplement that does such good things for people. And I wish I could tell you more about why it does it, but right now we're not there yet. We can at least show research that it does, and it's not that much of a placebo, because it's beating the placebos. So thank you for listening or watching, and I'll talk to you next week.